Hi everyone, it's Jazz and welcome to another episode of Wildlife Matters. Today, we're going to talk about the question, how scary are snakes? People say the darnest things about snakes because they think that snakes are scary. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about just exactly how scary these snakes are. Number one, like I said in my previous video, snakes are often misunderstood. They're scary because people only know either the myths or the extremes. And in another episode, we'll be debunking a lot of the common myths about snakes. But for today's episode, we're gonna talk about all those things that people seem to fear about snakes. Number two, they're gonna eat us. Actually, we're on top of the food chain. We humans eat them more than they eat us. One of the reasons why people are so afraid of snakes is because they think that snakes are out to eat them. But honestly, when snakes see humans, they don't see them as prey. In fact, they see us as predators, which is why their response is to protect or hide themselves. There have been more recorded instances of humans eating snakes more than snakes eating humans. Because first of all, only a few species of snakes can actually grow long enough to swallow a whole human being. And second, snakes are opportunistic hunters, which means that in the wild, they'll just take a bite of any species they come across. And that's also why it's wrong to think that snakes size up their prey before eating it. Because really, snakes are just not that smart to think about doing that. As opportunistic hunters, in the wild, snakes will eat anything. Even though their diet is supposed to consist of mostly mammals, they'll still eat animals like crocodiles and alligators, which they don't even know is what they're not supposed to be eating. It's okay to have a healthy fear of snakes as long as your respect for them is above your level of fear. Killing them should not be an option. Instead, respect that they're amazing apex predators that just want to survive like you do. However, for captive bred snakes, you can rest assured that it's been imprinted on their heads for generations and generations that prey smells like mice, rodents, chicken, quail, or whatever you're feeding them, and not the smell of humans or your furry pets. 3. It's gonna eat my dog. And that's how we move on to another fear, which is that snakes are gonna eat our other pets, or cats and dogs. Well, snakes recognize their food by scent. They use their tongues to smell because they hunt based on that sense of smell. So if your snake is not used to eating cats or dogs or any of your other pets, it's not going to pick up their scent as prey. If you're associating your pet snake with other pets, always make sure that it's under supervision. And that goes with any pet actually, not just with snakes. Also, it depends on what kind of snake you have. For instance, look at my ball python. Does it look like it can swallow a cat in whole? Probably not. Snakes like this are also known to be very picky eaters, so cats and dogs are probably not on their menu. But whatever the case, let's be cautious when letting our pet snakes interact with other animals just to avoid any stressful situation or accidents that might occur. Number 4, they have venom. While there are snakes that can give you nasty, life-threatening bites, not all snakes are venomous. It really depends on the kind of snake that you come in contact with. In the Philippines, we have around 175 species of snakes, and not all of them are venomous. Not all species of venomous snakes can kill you. Some of them can give you rashes or allergic reactions, but not all of them are bad enough to kill a human being. Venomous snakes use their venom to kill prey items in the wild. And because this venom was meant for their wild prey and not for us humans, it's not always potent enough to kill us. Although there are really some very lethal venomous snakes. However, if you do get bitten by a snake, not all snake bites are as bad as you think. And this might be my favorite fact to share because I get to talk about blood. So snakes have this thing in their saliva called anticoagulants, which causes you to bleed more than you expect to after being bitten. Anticoagulants are what keeps you from blood clot. So technically, after being bitten, I like to look at it as a fresh replacement of blood flowing through my veins. Number 5, it's gonna chase you. They're aggressive. Imagine this scenario. You're walking along the park and suddenly you come across a snake who, in his own separate scenario, was just minding his own business, and suddenly he comes across a human. As a human, you immediately come into a state of fear or panic. And the reality is, so does the snake. So both of your initial responses are to run through the quickest escape route. But sometimes you and the snake have the exact same escape route in mind. So both of you are just probably running in the same direction. So snakes are mostly really just defensive. However, there are some species of snakes that have been recorded to show some aggressive behavior. Some of them actually chase human beings, like the bushmaster, the black mamba, the saw-scaled viper, and other species, who are well known for this kind of behavior. But not all snakes are like that. Most snakes that appear to be aggressive are actually really just defensive. Snakes may sometimes strike or lunge forward or hiss at a human being, but only as a defensive mechanism and not a sign of wanting to go in for a fight. Remember, it sees you as a predator. In its little head, you're the dangerous one. And that is why education is key. Number 5, it's demonic. People may have this negative perception about snakes because of what they've read in the Bible or what they hear with the story of Adam and Eve, which talks about how Satan came in a form of a serpent, or the other many biblical stories in the Bible that talk about snakes. But let me tell you something. The Bible often uses snakes as a metaphor for demons, but at the same time, Satanists also like using goats in their images. But this is not to say that there are species of animals that God hates. I personally believe that God made all animals for His glory, and that God wants us to respect and care for these animals. Snakes were just metaphors for evil, but it doesn't mean that God said that they were evil creatures. I also believe that God wants us to respect and care for these animals because He made them all. I mean, if He cares about birds and what they eat and make sure that every bird is fed, God cares about all animals. And He even says in Proverbs 12 verse 10 that the righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. God is literally saying that we should care for our animals. Therefore, He cares about animals as well. I mean, He really made them all for His glory and to show how amazing He is. That's why when I see animals, even animals like snakes, I'm reminded of how amazing God is because He was able to make all these beautiful creatures. And last but not the least, this is the most common thing we get about snakes, which is that they're slimy. Snakes are not slimy at all. I don't know why people have this idea in their head, and there's not much for me to say about it. I'm pretty sure you all know that snakes have scales, and these scales are not like fish scales. They didn't come out of the water, so they don't feel slimy like fish, and they're actually really dry. In fact, whenever I describe what a snake feels like to my friends, I always say that they feel like a leather car seat. Some people say they feel like a basketball. Some people say they feel like just your regular snakeskin shoes or bags that I'm sure you've come across at least some point in your life, although we boycott those. But yeah, snakes are amazing creatures, and I understand that some people are afraid of them, but the thing is, a lot of people are afraid of them for the wrong reasons. And it's important that we correct these things so that people don't stay afraid of them for the reasons that they're not supposed to be. Although it's okay to be afraid of snakes, I mean, I'm afraid of butterflies, I get it. We all have our own fears, but it's important that we're not afraid of them for the wrong reasons. We have to correct wrong thinking because these snakes can't speak for themselves and they can't defend themselves when you're assuming things about them that aren't really true, right? And if you're not afraid of snakes anymore after this video, then I'm super happy about that. But if you still are, I just hope that this video gives you a newfound respect for snakes and that you see that they really are amazing creatures that, as I always say, deserve to live just as much as you do. So that is it for this episode of Wildlife Matters. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to like this page and always remember that every piece of wildlife matters.
Matungkol si Mali dahil inaalagaan ng maayos kaya nabibigyan ng enrichment program.
Sa pinakamasarap na trabaho sa buong mundo, sana nakakita ng trabaho kasama mo dito.
Kinagat ako ni Catherine. She is the Bengal tiger of 2 months.